don't know if Alex is going to do much talking. I'm Italian, so it kind of just takes over. But, so this story is about our 7-year-old at the time. He's now 8, how he kind of had a prophecy for our life back in October. So before I get into that, I just want to say that although this, by the way, I'm pregnant. If you haven't figured that one out. But before I get into that, yes, this is a pregnancy story, but it's more than that. So for those of you who really aren't in that stage of life, I just want you to kind of put the pregnancy aside and just really look into how, God was just speaking to the family. So, Alex and I were waiting for a child and praying for a child for our family for a couple of years. And after a good, solid year of, for sure, praying, I know I was praying, and there was even times where I was like...
I was too.
I would ask him, are you even praying? Because I'm not hearing anything from the Lord.
I started questioning you.
Yeah, so we had the same thought. But we were, in fact, praying, and, our son is mildly on the spectrum in the Asperger's area, and so he is very literal, and so everything is very literal and direct for him, and he would constantly want to know about God, but he was having a really hard time understanding, how is God supposed to speak to me if he's not a living person that can speak to my ears? And, trying to teach a child who's, on the spectrum, and a child alone, just, God speaks to your heart, it's really difficult. It's not exactly, the easiest thing to do. And so one day in September, this past September, he came home from Sunday school, and he goes, oh my gosh, today they asked in Sunday school if anybody wanted to accept Jesus in their heart. And he goes, they made us close our eyes and raise our hand if we wanted to. And he goes, today I finally raised my hand. And he goes, Mom, I'm a Christian now. He goes, I am a Christian. Our house is so cool. And I was like, yeah, it is. This is a cool house. So, a month later, so that was September, October, all it took was a month of him at 7 years old being a Christian, and God spoke to him. And he came home from school, and he was just getting in the house. He was putting his stuff down, and he just stopped whatever he was doing, and he just goes, Mom, I was putting my lunchbox away in my cubby in my locker, and God spoke to me. And he didn't speak through my ears, but I knew that it was him. And he said that we will have a child born in this house, but it won't be for 18 months. Very specific, right? And so at first I was like, oh, sweet child, I am so excited that you are finally, getting that. But my first instinct was, it shouldn't have been, but I was mad at how I felt, because I was like, 18 months? Are you kidding? Like, really? 18 months? Okay, sure. And it took me a couple of weeks. I supported Camden, and I was like, my son's name is Camden, and I was like, I just want you to keep praying, because whatever you're doing, the Lord is really speaking to you. And he goes, if the Lord is speaking to me, Mom, God spoke to me. And he said, in 18 months, a baby will be born. So a couple weeks go by, and I'd already spoken to Alex about it, and we just tried testing the waters and just saying, hey, remember that time that you said God spoke to you? And he goes, yeah. And he would repeat it. His story never changed. It was the same story. No details spared. And then one day I started really getting into it. I said, Camden, how did you know it was God? And how did you know to tell me? Almost dumbfounded myself, because, it was just such a detailed thing. And he goes, Mom, I just felt so happy. He goes, I just heard this voice. It was a boyish, manly voice. And yeah, a boyish, manly voice. He goes, I just felt so unbelievably happy, and I knew that I had to tell you immediately. And so that was the first thing he said when we came home from school. Lo and behold, 18 months from October is when we're due. And so something that I just wanted to add to this outside of the Camden story is that, I was waiting for the Lord to speak to me, and I wasn't even thinking about how the Lord was going to speak to me. And, how often do they say, that the Lord speaks through children? Children are so, perceptive to the Lord. And so, once I was stressing about it, 18 months is such a long time to wait, and we had already waited for so long, and so I was really stressing about it. I thought about going back to school, and I was like, man, but if I go back to school, and if this is true, that the baby's born in March, and of course, my son heard me from, across the hall, across the room, and he's like, it's true. So once I finally said, I believe this. I believe that was the Lord that spoke to you, and which he took as he thought I was calling him a liar, but that's beyond besides the fact. But once I believed it, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna choose to believe this. If I haven't heard anything, and if that is the Lord speaking through my son, then I'm gonna believe this. And literally the second I made that decision to believe that was God speaking to me, just this huge weight was lifted, and it was like, you can make any other choice that you want until March, because that's when that baby's born. So I just want to encourage the rest of you, again, not that this is a pregnancy story, but look and keep your eyes open and don't deny, when the Lord, you never know which way God is going to speak to you, whether it's through a child, through a coworker, through when your pastor is just a passerby on the street. Just, keep your eyes and your heart open, and it will happen. And Camden wanted me to tell you that he wanted to be here just so you could see him. And he also said, I asked him, I said, is there anything that you would like to tell anybody here about God speaking to you? And he said, do not ever stop praying. And that is from my 8-year-old, so take that.
You guys are awesome.